What drives a woman to embrace two broken souls, shunned by the world? Dive into the gripping saga of Kathryn, a black woman whose boundless love transforms Olivia and Ophelia, abused white twin sisters, from silent survivors to musical prodigies. Their journey from a Georgia farm to a tear-soaked stage holds secrets and surprises. Where are you watching from? Guess how their song for Kathryn changes everything. Subscribe for our latest heart-tugging tales, comment your thoughts, and hit the bell to uncover the twist that'll keep you glued. 99 words. The Georgia sun hung low, casting a golden haze over the cracked asphalt as Kathryn Harper gripped the steering wheel of her weathered SUV. Her palms were damp, not from the late afternoon heat, but from the weight of the moment. In the back seat, two small figures sat in silence, their presence both a promise and a challenge. Olivia and Ophelia, 9-year-old twin sisters, were more than passengers. They were her daughters now, bound to her by a freshly signed adoption decree from the Macon Children's Home. Kathryn's heart thrummed with equal parts resolve and uncertainty, like a drumbeat urging her forward into uncharted territory. She stole a glance in the rearview mirror, her dark eyes meeting the twins' pale, guarded ones. Olivia's blonde hair was tucked neatly behind her ears, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as if bracing for impact. Ophelia, her mirror image, stared out the window, her jaw set, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the glass. Their silence was louder than the hum of the engine, a wall built from years of rejection and pain. Kathryn's chest tightened. She had read their file, orphaned at 4 after a car accident stole their parents, shuttled through foster homes where love was a currency rarely spent. The twins had clung to each other, refusing to be separated, their bond a defiance against a world that had labeled them unadoptable. The road stretched toward Kathryn's farm, a modest haven of sunflowers and peach trees just outside Macon. She had inherited it from her mother, a woman whose laughter once filled every corner of the house. Now it was too quiet, the echoes of loss lingering in the creak of the porch swing. Kathryn, a schoolteacher with a heart too big for her solitary life, had always dreamed of a family. When she heard about the twins, two girls no one else wanted, something stirred in her, a call she couldn't ignore. The social worker's warning replayed in her mind. They're difficult, Kathryn. They don't trust easily. But she had seen the flicker of hope in their eyes, buried beneath layers of fear, and knew she could not turn away. Almost there, Kathryn said, her voice soft but steady, cutting through the heavy air. Olivia's gaze flicked to her, then back to her lap. Ophelia didn't move, her reflection in the window a study in stillness. Kathryn swallowed the urge to fill the silence with reassurances. Words alone wouldn't reach them. Not yet. The SUV rumbled over a dirt path, the farm coming into view. Sunlight glinted off the tin roof, and the scent of earth and honeysuckle drifted through the open windows. It was a place of second chances, and Kathryn prayed it could be that for these girls. She parked near the porch, where her mother's old rocking chair swayed gently in the breeze. Kathryn stepped out, smoothing her cotton dress, and opened the back door. "Come on, sweetheart," she said, offering a smile that felt both brave and fragile. Olivia slid out first, clutching a worn backpack, her eyes scanning the surroundings like a soldier assessing a battlefield. Ophelia followed, her movements deliberate, her backpack slung over one shoulder. They stood close, shoulders brushing, a united front against the unknown. Kathryn led them to the porch, her footsteps light but purposeful. "This is home," she said, gesturing to the house with its peeling white paint and flower boxes bursting with marigolds. "You're home." The words hung in the air, earnest but untested. Olivia nodded politely, a practiced gesture, while Ophelia's eyes darted to the fields, then back to Kathryn, searching for the catch. Kathryn's heart ached at their wariness, but she refused to let it show. She had chosen them, and she would prove it, day by day. Inside, the house was warm, the air thick with the scent of cornbread baking in the oven. Kathryn had spent the morning preparing, hoping the familiar smells would ease the transition. The living room was cozy, with a faded quilt draped over the sofa and framed photos of her parents on the mantel. She watched the twins take it in, their expressions unreadable. "Your room's upstairs," she said, pointing to the staircase. "I thought you might like to share, but we can change things if you want." Olivia's lips twitched, almost a smile, but Ophelia remained stone-faced, her fingers tightening around her backpack strap. They climbed the stairs, the wood creaking under their weight. The bedroom was simple but thoughtfully arranged. Two twin beds with matching blue quilts, a small desk, and a window overlooking the garden. Kathryn had painted the walls a soft lavender, hoping it would feel calming. "I wasn't sure what you liked," she admitted, "but we can make it yours." Olivia set her backpack on one bed, her movements careful, while Ophelia stood by the window, her back to the room. Kathryn resisted the urge to hug them, sensing their need for space. Downstairs, she served dinner: cornbread, collard greens, and fried chicken, a meal her mother used to make. The twins ate quietly, their forks moving with precision, as if afraid to draw attention. Kathryn kept the conversation light, talking about the farm, the neighbor's overly curious goat, anything to ease the tension. "There's a creek out back," she said. "Good for skipping stones." Olivia's eyes lit up briefly, but Ophelia's remained fixed on her plate. Kathryn didn't push, letting the silence settle like dust. As the meal ended, she noticed the twins' plates were nearly untouched. "Not hungry?" she asked gently. Olivia shook her head, murmuring, "It's good, ma'am. Just full." The word "ma'am" stung, a reminder of the distance between them. Kathryn smiled anyway. "There's plenty for later," she said, clearing the table. She caught Ophelia watching her, a flicker of curiosity in her gaze quickly masked. That night, Kathryn stood outside their bedroom door, listening to the soft rustle of blankets. She imagined them whispering to each other, their voices a private language forged in hardship. The social worker's words echoed, "They've been hurt, Kathryn. It'll take time." She nodded to herself, resolve hardening like steel. Time was something she could give. Love was something she would prove. As she turned off the hallway light, the house settled into quiet, the crickets outside singing a lullaby. Kathryn paused, her hand on the banister, and whispered a prayer. For strength, for patience, for the girls to feel safe. The twins were hers now, and she would fight for them, no matter how long it took to earn their trust. In the darkness, the farm stood as a promise, a place where broken hearts could mend, where a family could begin. The morning sun spilled through the farmhouse windows, painting the kitchen in hues of gold and amber. Kathryn Harper stood at the stove, the sizzle of bacon filling the air with a comforting warmth. She hummed an old gospel tune, her voice low and steady, as she prepared breakfast for Olivia and Ophelia, the 9-year-old twins now under her care. The weight of their first night in her home lingered in her chest, a night of quiet footsteps and whispered conversations behind their closed bedroom door. Today was a new day, a chance to build something fragile but real, and Kathryn was determined to tread carefully. Downstairs, the twins emerged, their blonde hair slightly tousled, their blue eyes wary as they stepped into the kitchen. Olivia clutched the hem of her faded sweater, her posture rigid, while Ophelia's gaze swept the room like a hawk assessing a new terrain. They moved as one, shoulders brushing, their bond a silent shield against the unknown. Kathryn turned, her smile warm but measured, sensing the delicate balance of trust. "Morning, sweethearts," she said, gesturing to the table. "Hope you're hungry." The table was set with care, plates of bacon, scrambled eggs, and biscuits, a pitcher of orange juice gleaming in the sunlight. Olivia hesitated, then slid into a chair, her movements precise, as if afraid to disturb the scene. Ophelia followed, her expression unreadable, her fingers curling around the edge of the table. Kathryn watched them, her heart aching at their caution. She had expected this. Years of foster homes had taught them to expect kindness as a trap, a prelude to cruelty. The word mama was a bridge too far, and even Kathryn seemed a risk they weren't ready to take. "Eat up," Kathryn said, sitting across from them, her tone light. "We've got a big day. Thought we'd explore the farm, maybe check out the garden." Olivia nodded politely, her fork hovering over her plate, while Ophelia's eyes flicked to the window, where the sunflowers swayed in the breeze. The silence was heavy, broken only by the clink of cutlery and the distant crow of a rooster. Kathryn resisted the urge to fill it with chatter, letting the twins set the pace. After breakfast, she led them outside, the air thick with the scent of earth and dew. The farm stretched before them, a patchwork of green fields and weathered fences. Kathryn pointed to the garden, where rows of tomatoes and zucchini thrived. "This is where I spend my morning," she said. "My mama used to say a garden's like a family. You tend it, and it grows." Olivia's lips twitched, a flicker of curiosity, but Ophelia's face remained a mask, her arms crossed tightly. They walked to the porch where Kathryn's mother's rocking chair sat, its wood worn smooth by years of use. "You can sit here any time," Kathryn said, patting the chair. "It's good for thinking." Olivia glanced at it, then at her sister, as if seeking permission. Ophelia gave a slight nod, and Olivia perched on the edge, her hands folded in her lap. Ophelia leaned against the railing, her eyes scanning the horizon, always watching, always waiting. Inside, Kathryn gave them tasks to ease them into the rhythm of the house. Olivia was tasked with wiping down the kitchen counter, her movements methodical, while Ophelia sorted a basket of laundry, her fingers quick but tense. Kathryn worked alongside them, humming softly, her presence a quiet reassurance. She noticed how they stole glances at her, testing her reactions, bracing for a shift in mood. In one foster home, a spilled glass had earned them a night without dinner. In another, a misplaced toy had brought sharp words. Here, Kathryn vowed, mistakes would not be crimes. The afternoon brought a moment of tension. Olivia, reaching for a glass of water, knocked it over, the liquid pooling on the counter. Her eyes widened, her breath catching as she froze, waiting for the inevitable. Kathryn moved quickly, grabbing a towel. "No harm done," she said, her voice calm. "We'll clean it up together." Olivia blinked, her shoulders relaxing slightly, but Ophelia's gaze sharpened, as if cataloging the moment for future reference. Later, as they sat on the porch with glasses of sweet tea, Kathryn tried to draw them out. "What do you like to do?" she asked. "Draw? Read?" Olivia hesitated, then murmured, "I like stories. Fairy tales." Ophelia said nothing, her silence a fortress, but her eyes softened when Olivia spoke. Kathryn nodded, tucking the detail away. "We've got a shelf full of books upstairs," she said. "You can pick one tonight." Olivia's face lit up, a small victory in the quiet war for trust. Dinner was simpler, chicken soup and cornbread, the steam rising in gentle curls. The twins ate slowly, their manners impeccable, as if afraid to offend. Kathryn shared a story about her childhood, how she'd once gotten lost in the woods behind the farm and found her way back by following the stars. Olivia listened intently, her fork paused, while Ophelia's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. It was a crack in their armor, fleeting but precious. As night fell, Kathryn showed them the stars from the backyard, the sky a canvas of twinkling light. "Look at that one," she said, pointing to a bright star. "That's Sirius, the brightest in the sky." Olivia tilted her head, captivated, while Ophelia's gaze lingered on Kathryn, a question unspoken. They stood in silence, the crickets weaving a lullaby, the moment fragile as glass. Upstairs, Kathryn tucked them into their lavender-walled room, the twin beds a mirror of their bond. "Sleep well," she said, her voice a soft promise. Olivia clutched a borrowed copy of Grimm's fairy tales, her fingers tracing the cover, while Ophelia lay still, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. As Kathryn closed the door, she heard a whisper, Olivia's voice soft and urgent, answered by Ophelia's murmur. They were talking, planning, surviving together, as they always had. Kathryn stood in the hallway, her hand on the doorknob, her heart a tangle of hope and patience. The twins were here in her home, but not yet in her heart, not fully. They were testing the ground, waiting for the moment kindness turned sour. She would prove them wrong, not with words but with actions, with time. The farmhouse creaked, settling into the night, and Kathryn whispered a vow. To be their anchor, their haven, no matter how long it took. The afternoon light filtered through the farmhouse windows, casting a soft glow across the living room, where Olivia stood, a dust cloth in her small hands. The air was thick with the scent of lemon polish, mingling with the faint sweetness of peach blossoms drifting in from the open window. Kathryn Harper had given the 9-year-old twins simple chores to help them settle into their new home. And Olivia, ever eager to please, moved carefully among the shelves, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. Ophelia sat cross-legged on the floor nearby, sorting a stack of old magazines, her sharp blue eyes flicking between her sister and the room, always vigilant. The living room was a tapestry of Kathryn's life. Framed photos of her parents, a quilt her mother had sewn, and a delicate porcelain vase on the mantel, a cherished heirloom from her grandmother. Olivia's cloth glided over the wood, her movements precise, as if each swipe was a test she couldn't afford to fail. She hummed softly, a habit from years of comforting herself in foster homes where silence was safer than speech. Ophelia glanced up, her lips twitching in approval, but her posture remained taut, ready to spring at the first sign of trouble. Kathryn was in the kitchen, the clatter of dishes a steady rhythm as she washed the lunch plates. Her voice floated through the doorway, singing an old spiritual, low and soulful, a sound that seemed to wrap the house in warmth. Olivia paused, her cloth hovering, drawn to the melody. It was a stark contrast to the harsh voices of their past foster parents who'd shouted over spilled milk or slammed doors for forgotten chores. Here, Kathryn's kindness felt like a puzzle, one the twins were still piecing together, waiting for the inevitable crack. Olivia stretched on her tiptoes to reach the mantel, her fingers brushing the edge of the porcelain vase. It was smooth, its pale blue glaze catching the light like a frozen wave. She meant to dust around it, but her sleeve caught the rim, and time seemed to slow as the vase wobbled. Her breath hitched, her heart lurching as it tipped, then fell, shattering on the hardwood floor with a crash that echoed like a gunshot. Shards scattered, glinting in the sunlight, and Olivia froze, her eyes wide with terror. The sound brought Ophelia to her feet, her magazines forgotten, her face paling as she rushed to her sister's side. Olivia's hands trembled, the dust cloth slipping to the floor, her voice a whisper. "I didn't mean to," she choked out, tears welling. Memories flooded back, foster homes where accidents meant punishment, where a broken dish had earned a slap, a locked closet, or worse, the threat of separation. "She'll send us away," Olivia whimpered, her gaze fixed on the wreckage, her small frame shaking. Ophelia's arm slid around her sister, protective, fierce. "It's okay," she murmured, though her own eyes darted to the kitchen, bracing for Kathryn's reaction. The twins stood united, their bond a fortress against the storm they expected. The clatter in the kitchen stopped, and Kathryn's footsteps approached, steady but quick. Olivia flinched, her tears spilling over, while Ophelia's jaw tightened, ready to defend her sister at any cost. Kathryn appeared in the doorway, her apron still tied, her dark eyes scanning the scene. The sight of the shattered vase, her grandmother's treasure, sent a pang through her. But it was Olivia's fear that gripped her heart. The girl stood like a deer caught in headlights, her face pale, her sobs barely audible. Ophelia's stance was defiant, her arm around Olivia, as if daring Kathryn to lash out. The air crackled with tension, the moment a precipice between trust and betrayal. Kathryn moved swiftly, kneeling beside Olivia, her hands gentle as she checked for cuts. "Sweetheart, are you hurt?" she asked, her voice soft, urgent with concern. Olivia blinked, stunned, her tears slowing as she shook her head. Kathryn's fingers brushed a stray tear from Olivia's cheek, her touch warm, steady. "It's just a vase," she said, her eyes locking with Olivia's. "You're more important than any old thing." The words hung in the air, simple but seismic, dismantling the fear that had rooted in Olivia's heart. Ophelia's guard wavered, her eyes narrowing as she studied Kathryn, searching for the anger she'd been conditioned to expect. But Kathryn's face held only compassion, her focus on Olivia unbroken. She reached for a broom, sweeping the shards with calm precision, her movements a quiet promise that no punishment would follow. "Accidents happen," she said, glancing at Ophelia, including her in the reassurance. "We clean up and move on." Olivia's sobs eased, her small hands clinging to Kathryn's sleeve, a lifeline in a sea of doubt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. Kathryn set the broom aside and pulled her into a gentle hug, her arms a haven. "No need for sorry," she murmured. "You're safe here." Olivia buried her face in Kathryn's shoulder, the weight of years of fear crumbling, if only for a moment. Ophelia watched, her arms still crossed, but her expression softened, a crack in her armor. She stepped closer, her eyes flicking between her sister and Kathryn, as if recalculating the rules of this new world. Kathryn met her gaze, offering a small nod, an invitation to trust. Ophelia didn't move, but the tension in her shoulders eased, a silent acknowledgement of the moment's power. Kathryn finished cleaning, the floor now clear, the vase's absence a small price for the breakthrough. She stood, brushing her hands on her apron. "How about some lemonade on the porch?" she suggested, her tone light, as if the world hadn't just shifted. Olivia nodded, wiping her eyes, while Ophelia followed, her steps deliberate, her mind still processing. On the porch, they sat in the rocking chairs, the breeze carrying the scent of honeysuckle. Kathryn handed them glasses of lemonade, the ice clinking softly. Olivia sipped hers, her face still flushed, but a faint smile tugged at her lips. Ophelia held her glass, her eyes on the horizon, but she didn't pull away when Olivia leaned closer, their shoulders touching. Kathryn watched them, her heart swelling with cautious hope. The vase was gone, but something new was taking root, a fragile trust, born in the ashes of fear. She knew the road ahead would be long, that one moment couldn't erase years of pain. But as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of pink, she felt a quiet certainty. She would keep showing up, keep proving that love could be steady, that this home could be theirs. The crickets began their evening song, and the farmhouse stood as a sentinel, holding the twins in its embrace. Olivia's fingers brushed Ophelia's, a silent pact, while Kathryn's voice hummed a lullaby, low and sure. The day had cracked open a door, and though the twins stood on the threshold, hesitant, they had taken a step. For now, that was enough. The farmhouse kitchen glowed under the morning sun, its walls alive with the scent of cinnamon and vanilla. Kathryn Harper stood at the counter, her hands dusted with flour, kneading dough for peach cobbler, her movements as rhythmic as a heartbeat. The air hummed with possibility, a quiet promise that the 9-year-old twins, Olivia and Ophelia, might find a home in this space, not just in the rooms, but in the warmth of routine, the safety of care. Kathryn's heart beat with cautious hope, each day a step toward weaving a family from threads of trust. Olivia sat at the table, her blonde hair tied back, carefully peeling peaches, her knife steady but slow, as if savoring the task. Ophelia, beside her, sliced the fruit into neat wedges, her sharp blue eyes focused, though they flicked occasionally to Kathryn, testing the air for shifts. The twins had settled into a fragile rhythm in the farmhouse, their wariness softening like clay under gentle hands. Yet the word mama remained a leap they circled, a bridge they crossed only in fleeting moments, fear still whispering of betrayal. Kathryn glanced at them, her smile a beacon. "You're naturals at this," she said, her voice warm, threading through the clink of knives. Olivia's cheeks flushed, a shy pride flickering, while Ophelia's lips twitched, her guarded heart stirred by the praise. The kitchen was their sanctuary today, a place where tasks became rituals, where love was baked into every bite. Kathryn had learned their rhythms, Olivia's need for approval, Ophelia's quiet defiance, and she met them with patience, letting them set the pace. Outside, the farm beckoned, its fields a canvas for new beginnings. After the cobbler was in the oven, Kathryn led the twins to the garden, where zucchini and tomatoes thrived under her care. She handed them each a trowel, her eyes bright. "Let's plant some carrots," she said. "They're tough, like you two." Olivia giggled, a sound as rare as a sparrow's song, while Ophelia knelt, her hands tentative in the soil, as if touching something sacred. They worked side by side, the earth yielding to their efforts, a quiet bond forming in the dirt. The day unfolded in small, deliberate moments. Kathryn taught them to weed, her laughter spilling when Olivia accidentally pulled a flower instead. "That's okay, sweetheart," she said, replanting it with care. "Mistakes are how we learn." Ophelia watched, her skepticism softening, the absence of punishment a language she was beginning to understand. They watered the rows, their sneakers muddy, their faces lit with purpose, the farm weaving them into its story. Back inside, the cobbler's aroma filled the house, a siren call of comfort. Kathryn set the table for lunch, the twins helping without being asked, Olivia folding napkins, Ophelia placing forks with precision. Their movements were less guarded now, their shoulders relaxed, as if the house had begun to feel like theirs. Kathryn noticed her heart swelling, but she kept her joy quiet, knowing trust was a flame that needed tending, not fanning. The afternoon brought a surprise. Kathryn had learned the twins had never had a proper birthday celebration, their past marked by neglect or indifference. She'd planned a secret for their 10th, a gesture to mark their place in her life. As the twins sat on the porch, sipping lemonade, Kathryn slipped inside, her hands trembling with excitement. She decorated the dining room with balloons and streamers, their colors bright against the faded walls. On the table, a chocolate cake stood proud, its candles waiting to be lit, a recipe she'd perfected for this moment. When she called them in, her voice held a playful lilt. "Got something for you," she said, leading them to the doorway. Olivia's eyes widened, her gasp echoing as she saw the decorations. Ophelia froze, her breath catching, her gaze darting from the cake to Kathryn, as if decoding a riddle. "Happy birthday," Kathryn said, lighting the candles, their flames dancing in the dim light. "You deserve to be celebrated." The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the twins' defenses. Olivia's hands flew to her mouth, tears brimming, while Ophelia's jaw tightened, her eyes glistening with something unspoken. Kathryn began to sing "Happy Birthday," her voice rich and soulful, filling the room with love. The twins stood rooted, the weight of the moment pressing against years of forgotten days, of birthdays marked only by silence. Olivia stepped forward, her voice small. "This is for us?" she asked, as if the idea was too big to hold. Kathryn nodded, her own eyes misty. "Every bit of it." They blew out the candles together, their breaths mingling, a wish shared in silence. As they cut the cake, Olivia's laughter bubbled, free and unguarded, while Ophelia's smile broke through, soft but real. They ate, the chocolate smudging their fingers, the room alive with their chatter. Olivia recounting a fairy tale, Ophelia teasing her for talking with her mouth full. Kathryn watched, her heart a drumbeat of joy, the moment a cornerstone in their fragile foundation. That night, as she tucked them into bed, the lavender-walled room felt warmer, the air charged with a new closeness. Olivia clutched her book of fairy tales, her eyes heavy but bright. "Thank you," she whispered, then hesitated, her voice barely audible. "Mama." The word was a gift, fragile as a soap bubble, and Kathryn's breath caught. Ophelia, already under the covers, met Kathryn's gaze, her nod slight but weighty. "Good night, Mama," she murmured, the title a tentative bridge. Kathryn kissed their foreheads, her touch lingering, her heart full to bursting. "Sleep tight, my girl," she said, her voice a vow. She closed the door softly, standing in the hallway, the house settling around her like a warm embrace. The twins had crossed a threshold, their trust a seedling taking root. It wasn't complete, not yet. Years of pain couldn't vanish in a day, but it was a beginning, a spark that could grow. Outside, the crickets sang, their chorus weaving through the night. The farmhouse stood as a sentinel, its walls holding the echoes of laughter, of cake and candles, of a family being born. Kathryn leaned against the banister, her eyes on the stars, whispering a prayer for strength, for love, for the twins to hold fast to this moment. The road ahead was long, but tonight they were hers, and she was theirs, bound by a bond that was starting to feel like home. The campfire crackled under a velvet sky, its flames casting a warm glow across the Okefenokee swamp, where Kathryn Harper and her adopted daughters, Olivia and Ophelia, had pitched their tent. The air was thick with the scent of pine and marsh, the night alive with the hum of crickets and the distant call of an owl. Kathryn leaned back on a log, her dark eyes reflecting the firelight, a thermos of hot cocoa in her hands. The 11-year-old twins sat close, their blonde hair catching the flicker of the flames, their faces softer than she'd ever seen, the farm's safety having begun to loosen their guarded hearts. They had come to the swamp for a weekend escape, a chance to trade the routine of chores for adventure. Kathryn had packed marshmallows and blankets, hoping the wildness of the place would spark joy in the girls, who were still learning to trust the world and her. She watched them now, their shoulders relaxed, their usual vigilance dulled by the fire's hypnotic dance. Olivia poked a stick into the embers, her giggles rising as sparks flew, while Ophelia, ever the observer, wrapped a blanket tighter around her knees, her sharp eyes tracing the shadows. Kathryn sipped her cocoa, her voice breaking the quiet. "Know any good campfire stories?" she asked, her tone playful, inviting them to share. Olivia's eyes lit up, but Ophelia shook her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Then unexpectedly Olivia began to hum, a soft, lilting melody that seemed to weave itself into the night. Ophelia joined in, her alto blending seamlessly with Olivia's soprano, their voices rising like a tide, haunting and pure. The song was an old folk tune, one they'd heard on the radio, but in their harmony, it became something otherworldly, a thread of beauty spun from their shared soul. Kathryn froze, the thermos nearly slipping from her hands, her breath caught by the sound. The twins' voices wove a spell, their harmony flawless, each note carrying a weight of emotion that belied their youth. The fire seemed to dim in reverence, the swamp itself holding its breath. When the final note faded, the silence was profound, broken only by the snap of a twig in the flames. Kathryn's heart raced, her eyes wide with awe. "Girls," she whispered, "why didn't you tell me you could sing like that?" Olivia blushed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "We only sing for each other," she mumbled, her voice shy but proud. Ophelia's gaze met Kathryn's, a flicker of vulnerability beneath her usual guard. "It's ours," she said, as if the song were a secret too precious to share. Kathryn nodded, her mind already racing. She saw not just talent, but a gift, a way for the twins to claim their place in a world that had once cast them aside. She vowed to nurture it, to give them a stage where their voices could soar. Back at the farm, Kathryn wasted no time. She contacted Ms. Evelyn, the choir director at First Baptist Church in Macon, a woman known for her sharp ear and kind heart. "I've got two girls who'll surprise you," Kathryn told her, her voice brimming with conviction. Ms. Evelyn agreed to meet them, and on a humid afternoon, Kathryn drove the twins to the church, its steeple piercing the sky like a promise. The twins sat in the back seat, their hands clasped, their faces a mix of nerves and defiance. Olivia fidgeted with her dress while Ophelia stared out the window, her jaw set as if bracing for judgment. Inside the sanctuary, the air was cool, the pews empty save for Ms. Evelyn, who stood by the piano, her silver hair catching the stained glass light. "Whenever you're ready," she said, her tone professional but warm. The twins exchanged a glance, their bond a silent pact. Olivia took a breath, her soprano cutting through the stillness with a gospel hymn Kathryn had taught them, "Amazing Grace." Ophelia joined, her alto weaving a rich counterpoint, their voices filling the vaulted ceiling with a sound that seemed to lift the very rafters. The hymn was raw, unpolished, but its power was undeniable, a testament to their shared strength. Ms. Evelyn's lips parted, her hands still on the piano keys, her eyes wide with astonishment. When the twins finished, the silence was electric, the echoes of their song lingering like a prayer. "My goodness," she said, clapping slowly, "that was extraordinary." She offered to train them, proposing weekly lessons to hone their gift. Kathryn beamed, her pride a quiet fire, while the twins stood closer, their nerves giving way to a tentative thrill. The lessons became a ritual. Every Wednesday, Kathryn drove them to the church, the car filled with their soft humming, a prelude to the harmonies they'd craft. Ms. Evelyn challenged them with complex arrangements, from spirituals to classical pieces, and the twins rose to each, their confidence growing with every note. Olivia's voice gained clarity, her shyness fading, while Ophelia's deepened, her reserve melting in the music. Kathryn sat in the back pew during rehearsals, her heart swelling as their voices blended, a mirror of their unbreakable bond. Their first public performance loomed, an Easter service at the church, a chance to share their gift with the community. The night before, the twins were restless, their nerves surfacing in quiet whispers as they lay in their lavender-walled room. Kathryn tucked them in, her voice steady. "You'll shine tomorrow," she said, kissing their foreheads. "Just sing like you do for each other." Olivia clutched her hand, a rare gesture, while Ophelia's nod was firm, her trust in Kathryn now a quiet anchor. The service dawned bright, the sanctuary packed with worshippers, their murmurs a low hum. Kathryn sat in the front row, her hands clasped, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation. The twins stepped forward, their matching blue dresses simple but elegant, their faces pale but resolute. Olivia gave the starting note, and their voices soared. The hymn, "How Great Thou Art," filling the space with a power that hushed the crowd. Their harmony was a tapestry, each note a thread of their journey, their love, their resilience. By the final chord, the congregation was on its feet, clapping, cheering, some wiping tears. Kathryn stood, her eyes glistening, her applause the loudest. The twins caught her gaze, their smiles shy but radiant, the weight of the moment settling in their hearts. The church buzzed with praise, whispers of their talent spreading like wildfire. Kathryn knew this was only the beginning, a spark that could light their path forward. As they left the sanctuary hand in hand, she felt a certainty. Their voices would carry them far, and she would be there, every step to lift them higher. The Atlanta auditorium pulsed with anticipation, its vast ceiling strung with lights that glittered like a starlit sky. Kathryn Harper sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly, her heart a metronome of pride and nerves. On stage, the spotlight waited, a silent summons for Olivia and Ophelia, now 20, to claim their place in a national talent competition offering a $100,000 prize. The twins, once guarded orphans, had become local legends in Macon, their voices a beacon of hope. Tonight, they stood on the cusp of something greater, and Kathryn, their steadfast mother, felt the weight of their journey in every breath. Backstage, Olivia adjusted her simple black dress, her blonde hair swept into a loose braid, her blue eyes bright with determination. Ophelia stood beside her, her matching dress a mirror, her gaze steady but electric, her fingers brushing Olivia's in a silent pact. They had spent weeks perfecting an a cappella arrangement of a soulful ballad, Hallelujah, its haunting melody a canvas for their harmony. Kathryn had been their anchor, sewing their dresses, rehearsing with them in the farmhouse living room, her encouragement a lifeline. "Sing from your heart," she told them, her voice a vow, and they carried her words like armor. The auditorium buzzed, the crowd a sea of faces, families, scouts, dreamers, all waiting for the next act. The twins had risen through local rounds, their performances earning whispers of prodigies and stars. But this stage was different, its scale daunting, its stakes life-changing. The prize could fund college, a music career, a future they'd once thought impossible. Kathryn's eyes scanned the judges' table, their faces stern, clipboards ready. She whispered a prayer, her faith in the twins unshakable, her love a steady flame. The MC's voice boomed, introducing the Harper twins, a name that sent a ripple through the crowd. Olivia and Ophelia stepped into the spotlight, their presence commanding, their bond palpable. The audience hushed, the air thick with expectation. Backstage, technicians dimmed the house lights, and for a moment, the twins stood alone, the world reduced to their shared breath. Olivia glanced at Ophelia, her nod a spark, and Ophelia's faint smile answered, their trust a fortress built over the years. Olivia's opening note pierced the silence, a crystalline soprano that seemed to lift the room. Ophelia joined, her alto weaving a rich counterpoint, their voices blending into a tapestry of longing and grace. The ballad unfolded, each phrase a brushstroke of their story: pain, resilience, love. The auditorium vanished. It was just them, singing as they had by the campfire years ago, their harmony a language of survival. The melody soared, their dynamics shifting from whispers to crescendos, each note raw, unfiltered, a bearing of their souls. Kathryn watched, her breath caught, her eyes glistening. The twins' voices filled every corner of the space, their harmony a force that seemed to bend time. She saw flashes of their journey, their first nervous hymn in church, their giggles over peach cobbler, the nights she'd tucked them in, promising safety. Now they were women, their talent a light that could not be dimmed. The crowd leaned forward, some clutching hands, others wiping tears, captivated by the twins' authenticity, their unbreakable bond. The final chord hung in the air, a perfect blend of sorrow and hope. And then, silence. For a heartbeat, the auditorium held its breath, the weight of the moment suspending reality. Then the crowd erupted, a tidal wave of applause and cheers that shook the walls. People leapt to their feet, whistling, shouting, their faces alight with awe. The judges stood, their claps deliberate, their eyes wide with admiration. Kathryn rose, her hands trembling, her applause a love letter to her daughters. Backstage, the twins embraced, their breaths ragged, their smiles radiant. Olivia's laugh was a burst of joy, while Ophelia's eyes shone, her usual reserve melted by the moment. They hurried to Kathryn, who pulled them into a fierce hug, her tears dampening their hair. "You were incredible," she whispered, her voice thick with pride. "My girls." The twins clung to her, their gratitude unspoken but profound, the spotlight's glow still warm on their skin. The judges' scores flashed on screen, near-perfect marks propelling the twins to the top. The MC announced their victory, the $100,000 prize theirs, and the crowd roared again, chanting, "Harper Twins!" A video of their performance, captured by an audience member, was already spreading online, its views climbing by the minute. Backstage, scouts approached, offering record deals, brand endorsements, a future bright with possibility. Kathryn fielded their inquiries, her calm demeanor a shield, ensuring the twins' dreams stayed theirs to shape. That night in their hotel room, the twins sat on the bed, the city's lights twinkling beyond the window. Olivia scrolled through comments on the viral video, her laughter bubbling at fans' praise. Ophelia, quieter, leaned against her sister, her fingers tracing the edge of a notebook where she'd jotted song ideas. Kathryn sat across from them, her heart full, her role as their mother now intertwined with their rising stardom. "This is just the start," she said, her voice steady, "but stay true to who you are." The twins nodded, their eyes meeting hers, a silent vow to remain grounded. They spoke of their plans, college, a studio album, a tour, but their words returned to Kathryn, to the farm, to the home that had made this possible. Olivia's hand found Kathryn's, her grip tight. "We wouldn't be here without you, Mama," she said, the title now natural, a cornerstone. Ophelia's nod was firm, her voice soft. "You believed in us." Kathryn smiled, her eyes glistening, the weight of their love a gift she'd never take for granted. The city hummed outside, but in this room, it was just them. A family forged in trust, now poised for greatness. The twins' voices had carried them here, but it was their hearts and Kathryn's unwavering faith that would carry them forward. As they drifted to sleep, the world buzzing with their names, Kathryn whispered a prayer for strength, for wisdom, for the journey ahead, knowing they would face it together. The farmhouse was a haven of morning light, its kitchen filled with the clink of coffee mugs and the soft hum of a radio. Kathryn Harper stood by the sink, her hands steady as she rinsed dishes, her heart buoyant from the twins' recent triumph in Atlanta. Olivia and Ophelia, now 20, sat at the table, their blonde heads bent over a phone, giggling at fan comments on their viral performance video. Their voices, once a private solace, had become a national sensation, and the farmhouse buzzed with the promise of their future. But a sharp knock at the door shattered the warmth, its echo a harbinger of upheaval. Kathryn dried her hands, her smile fading as she crossed the room. The twins looked up, their laughter stilled, sensing the shift. She opened the door to a woman with sharp features and weary eyes, her auburn hair pulled into a tight bun. "I'm Margaret Walsh," the stranger said, her voice trembling, a forced smile barely masking her nerves. "I'm their mother." The words struck like a thunderbolt, freezing the air. Olivia's phone slipped to the table, and Ophelia's hand found her sister's, their bond a reflex against the storm. Kathryn's heart clenched, her protective instincts flaring, but she gestured for Margaret to enter, her face a mask of calm. The twins stood, their eyes wide, a whirlwind of confusion and curiosity swirling within them. They sat in the living room, the quilt-draped sofa a stark contrast to the tension that filled the space. Margaret perched on the edge of a chair, her hands twisting a tissue, her gaze darting between the twins as if memorizing them. Kathryn stood by the mantel, her presence a quiet anchor, her mind racing to shield her daughters from whatever this meant. Margaret's story spilled out, a torrent of regret and desperation. She'd been 16 when she gave birth to the twins, trapped in an abusive relationship with a man who'd left her broken. After his death in a bar fight, she'd been unable to care for them, her own survival a daily battle. She'd left them at an orphanage, hoping they'd find a better life, and claimed she'd searched for them ever since, only now finding them through their fame. "I never stopped loving you," she said, tears streaming, her voice cracking as she reached for their hands. Olivia's face softened, her empathetic heart stirred by the tale. But Ophelia's eyes narrowed, her skepticism a shield honed by years of betrayal. Kathryn watched, her chest tight, sensing the undercurrent in Margaret's words. The woman spoke of their talent, their beauty, her pride in their success, but her eyes lingered on the phone, on the comments about record deals and endorsements. Kathryn's intuition prickled. Margaret's tears felt rehearsed, her story too convenient for the twins' newfound fame. The twins were silent, their emotions a tangle of longing and doubt. Olivia's voice was small. "Why now?" she asked, her fingers tightening around Ophelia's. Margaret hesitated, her smile faltering. "I saw you on TV," she admitted. "I knew I had to make things right." Ophelia's jaw tightened, her gaze piercing. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone sharp, cutting through the haze. Margaret blinked, her hands fluttering. "To be your mother again," she said, but the words rang hollow, a note off-key. Kathryn's heart ached, torn between compassion for Margaret's pain and fear for her daughters. She spoke softly, her voice steady. "This is a lot for them. They need time." Margaret nodded, her eyes darting to the twins, a flicker of impatience beneath her grief. She handed them a card with her number, promising to stay in Savannah, to wait. As she left, the door's click was a gunshot, leaving the room heavy with unresolved questions. The twins sat, their faces pale, their bond a lifeline. Olivia's tears fell silently, her heart grappling with the idea of a mother she'd never known. Ophelia's anger simmered, her trust in Kathryn clashing with the pull of blood. "She doesn't know us," Ophelia said, her voice low, fierce. "You do, Mama." Olivia nodded, but her eyes lingered on the card, a seed of curiosity planted. Kathryn knelt before them, her hands on theirs. "You decide what's right," she said, her voice a vow. "I'm here, always." Against her instincts, Kathryn agreed to let the twins meet Margaret again, her love for them outweighing her dread. She drove them to a Savannah cafe, her heart heavy as she watched them enter, their steps hesitant. Margaret greeted them with gifts, necklaces, a photo album of her childhood. Her charm polished but brittle. The twins listened, their questions cautious, their hearts torn between loyalty to Kathryn and the allure of answers. Margaret spoke of a new life together, of sharing their success, her words laced with promises of fame and wealth. Days passed, and Margaret's presence grew insistent. She called daily, her tone shifting from pleading to possessive, hinting at legal claims if the twins didn't comply. Kathryn's fear deepened, but she hid it, her strength a beacon for the twins. One evening, Olivia found a letter in Margaret's purse during a visit, an old orphanage document proving Margaret had known their whereabouts years ago, but chose not to act. The revelation shattered their hope, exposing Margaret's greed. "She wants our money," Olivia whispered, her voice breaking, while Ophelia's eyes blazed, her anger afire. The twins confronted Margaret, their voices steady despite their pain. "You left us," Ophelia said, her words ablade. "Kathryn didn't." Margaret's excuses crumbled, her tears now a performance unmasked. The twins walked away, their steps firm, their hearts bruised but resolute. They drove back to the farm in silence, the night wrapping them in its embrace, their choice clear. Kathryn was in the garden, her hands in the soil, when they returned at dawn. She looked up, her breath catching as they ran to her, their tears falling. "We're sorry, Mama," Olivia sobbed, and Ophelia's voice was fierce. "You're our mother." Kathryn pulled them close, her tears warm against their hair, her love a fortress. The farmhouse stood silent, its walls holding their pain, their choice, their family, a bond no blood could break. The farmhouse glowed under a twilight sky, its windows casting a warm amber light across the Georgia fields. Kathryn Harper stood on the porch, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea, the air sweet with the scent of sunflowers and earth. Inside, the hum of Olivia and Ophelia's voices filled the living room, their laughter a melody that had once been a rare gift. Now 20, the twins had returned to her, their hearts resolute after rejecting their biological mother's hollow claims. Tonight, the farmhouse was more than a home. It was a sanctuary, a testament to a family forged through love's unyielding strength. Kathryn's heart still carried the ache of the twins' brief departure, but their return had sealed a truth. She was their mother, not by blood but by choice, by countless moments of care. The twins, now national sensations after their $100,000 talent competition win, had faced a crossroads and chosen her. They had legally affirmed Kathryn as their guardian, silencing Margaret's threats, their bond with her a fortress no one could breach. As the crickets began their evening chorus, Kathryn felt a quiet peace, knowing the twins were hers and she theirs in every way that mattered. Inside, Olivia sprawled on the couch, her blonde hair loose, a notebook open as she jotted lyrics, her soprano humming softly. Ophelia sat cross-legged on the floor, strumming a guitar, her alto weaving into her sister's melody, their harmony a reflex, a language of their shared soul. They were preparing for a record deal, their first album a dream taking shape, and Kathryn had become their anchor, managing schedules and shielding them from the industry's clamor. The room buzzed with creative energy, the twins' laughter mingling with the clink of iced tea glasses, the farmhouse alive with their presence. Kathryn stepped inside, her smile a beacon. "Sounds like a hit already," she said, setting her mug on the table. Olivia grinned, her eyes bright. "It's for you, Mama," she said, the word now natural, a cornerstone of their bond. Ophelia's nod was firm, her fingers pausing on the strings. "About home," she added, her voice soft but weighted, the farm's embrace woven into every chord. Kathryn's heart swelled, her pride a quiet fire, their love a gift she'd never take for granted. The twins' careers were soaring. Their viral performance had sparked a national tour, with sold-out shows from Nashville to Chicago. Kathryn joined them, her school teacher's calm a steady hand amid the chaos of promoters and fans. She packed their favorite snacks, sewed last-minute costume repairs, and sat in the front row at every concert, her applause the loudest. The twins' voices, Olivia's crystalline soprano, Ophelia's rich alto, captivated audiences. But it was their story, their resilience that moved hearts. Each show was a celebration, a testament to the family they'd built. One evening, in an Atlanta arena packed with thousands, the twins paused their set, the stage lights softening to a golden glow. Olivia stepped to the microphone, her voice steady but emotional. "This next song is for our mother, Kathryn Harper," she said, her eyes finding Kathryn in the crowd. Ophelia joined her guitar slung low. "She saved us, gave us a home, believed in us when no one else did." The crowd hushed, sensing the weight of the moment. They began to sing, a new ballad titled Mama's Light, its lyrics a tapestry of their journey. Pain, trust, love. Kathryn's breath caught, tears brimming as their voices filled the arena, each note a love letter to her. The melody was haunting, their harmony flawless, carrying the weight of their shared history. The farmhouse, the garden, the nights she'd promised them safety. The audience rose, some weeping, others clutching hands, moved by the twins' authenticity, their gratitude. Kathryn stood, her hands pressed to her heart, her applause a silent vow to always be their anchor. The crowd roared, the twins' dedication a moment that would echo in headlines and hearts. Back at the farm, life settled into a new rhythm. The twins planted a sunflower garden, its golden blooms a symbol of their growth, their roots deep in the soil of Kathryn's love. They worked on their album, recording in a local studio, their laughter spilling into late-night sessions. Kathryn joined them, her voice sometimes harmonizing in playful moments. The farmhouse a hub of creativity. Neighbors dropped by, drawn by the music, and the porch became a stage for impromptu concerts, the community embracing the twins as their own. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the twins and Kathryn sat on the porch, the rocking chairs creaking softly. Olivia leaned against Kathryn, her head on her shoulder, while Ophelia strummed a gentle tune, the stars emerging overhead. "You changed everything, Mama," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. Ophelia's eyes met Kathryn's, her smile rare but radiant. "We're staying, always," she said, the promise a seal on their bond. Kathryn's tears fell, her hand squeezing theirs. "We saved each other," she whispered, her voice a vow. The farmhouse stood as a sentinel, its walls holding their laughter, their music, their love. The twins' voices carried them to the world, but their hearts remained here, in the home Kathryn had built. They spoke of dreams, a Grammy, a global tour, but always returned to the farm, to the sunflowers, to the woman who'd given them everything. Kathryn looked at them, her girls, and saw a future bright with possibility, a family made whole by resilience and love. As the night deepened, the crickets sang, their chorus a lullaby for the farm. Kathryn's heart was full, the twins' presence a gift that filled every corner of her once quiet life. They were her daughters, she their mother, and together they were unbreakable. The stars shone brighter, the farmhouse glowed warmer, and in that moment they knew. No matter where their voices took them, this was home, and they were whole. What did Kathryn, Olivia, and Ophelia's journey stir in you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could you open your heart like Kathryn, or stand firm like the twins? Thank you for joining us in this tale of love and resilience. Subscribe, hit the bell, and don't miss our next inspiring story. Tell us where you're listening from, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay connected, and we'll see you soon.